Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome. How was everybody? Let me. There we go. Good evening, good evening. I hope everyone is doing well. We are about to get started on our 3 books of occult philosophy live stream. We are going to be reading the foundational text for occultism. Let me. There we go. We're going to be reading the 3 books of occult philosophy. We're going to be reading, analyzing, and lecturing through them with Quinn from Man of Medim. Oh, there he is, actually. Hello, brother.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well. How are you? Let me switch this. There we go.
I'm doing all right. Can't complain.
Nice. Good. Glad to hear it, man. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get started. Um, this is this is going to be. I think this is going to be great. I think it's going
Yeah,
to be great.
yeah. I was a little intimidated by the idea, but I'm like, hell, might as well just go for it, you know? And it's kind of something that will just keep on giving rise to new things to talk about for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and book one, the divine world, sorry, excuse me, the natural world is probably, other than the divine world, is probably the most interesting um, books within the 3 books. So I think, I mean, even just the first few chapters, I think we'll have a lot to talk about. I think we'll have a lot to analyze and go over and, you know, discuss.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And it's funny too because I remember getting the book and thinking that going straight to the ceremonial magic and the celestial books, and then finding myself when I'm actually practicing going to the first one
yeah.
out of the other two. It was just kind of like, with the virtues of the planets and stuff. It was just one of those like natural things. Is like, yeah, I mean. I used the first book a lot more than the other two, but yeah, I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I would say I'm in the first book and the third book most often. The second book isn't really my favorite, and I think it has to do with the fact that there's a lot of math in that book, and I don't like math. I don't like numbers, um, which is weird because of where I work. But anyway, but yeah, I think we'll have a lot of fun. It will take us a while to get through all 3 books. I mean, it took me and uh, me and Alchemic Mason 7 months to get through the corpus. Um, so I and there's 3 entire books here, so I think it'll take us a little over a year, but it is well worth it, and I think it's something that the occult community needs. So these will be going up, if you're okay with it, on my YouTube
Yeah.
after each episode. I mean, not right away because I think it takes like 2 hours, like to for it to process within TikTok before I can even download it, and by that time I'm not awake. So um, I usually do it the next day. But for those who are just joining, welcome in. Hey, Rear Naked Choke, what's up? We're doing something a little different from here on out, actually. Well, not a little different. It's actually going to be a lot different. There's a couple changes that are happening here. So the regular Tuesday night streams that we normally have are still happening, but they're going to be moving to Sundays. So tonight is going to be the final Tuesday night stream with myself and Quinn. Instead of Tuesday nights, we're going to be moving them to Sunday nights. And if I recall correctly, Quinn, that is also starting this week. So this Sunday, we will be doing an episode. Okay. So yes. So this Sunday, so it'll be tonight and this coming Sunday. And then after that, it'll just be every Sunday. And I think we're going to keep the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern time, and go from there. So that's changing. The second thing that is changing with that is we are no longer, at least on the regular, going to be doing the Q&A type of live streams, although continue to ask questions, of course, but the live streams are not going to be for that any longer going forward. We are going to be doing a grimoire live stream series during our live streams. We're going to be reading, analyzing, and lecturing through various grimoires. And we are starting with, as you can probably tell, uh, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's three books of occult philosophy. So we're going to be reading and lecturing through this. We will be here for a while. Um, so uh, but it's well worth it because this is the foundational text when it comes to Western esotericism, Western occultism. So you guys are in for a fantastic live stream this evening. Anything you want to add to that, Quinn?
No, just to, piggyback of what you said, it is a big book. It's a major feat for sure. There's a lot of interesting fundamentals within this. It's for sure not a book that you just sit down and start reading. It is a practicing magician's or a practicing grimoire magician's reference guide. Not even just a grimoire magician, but you could just from witch to sorcerer or whatever it may be. There's just so many um, there's so many aspects of this book that just can help the practitioner put together rituals and so forth. So yeah, I'm just super excited about it.
Likewise, man. Likewise. Do I read Latin? I mean, I can read it, sure, but I don't necessarily know what it's saying. I did not do well in Latin in school, which is weird because my Latin teacher was also my French teacher, and I aced French, so we had a good relationship over in the French class. So I figured that could carry over to Latin. I can just slack off in Latin, and nope, she gave me a D. So you know, thanks, Madame Nerloni. Thank you very much. But anyway, I'm a complete beginner. Would I be able to understand this book? Yes, actually. Um, Especially as we go through it, we're going to elucidate on it and explain. But yes, it is pretty. It's basic and it's complex at the same time. But we will get into that, and it'll unfold, and you'll see what I mean as we read along. But yes, you shouldn't have any issue understanding. The beautiful thing about the book is that it kind of starts. I mean, it kind of is formatted in almost like a structured sort of a learning way. It kind of builds on itself. It's not just random chapters thrown together from some Renaissance guy. It really builds on it. I mean, I wouldn't set up my course this way, but it's fantastic as is. I wouldn't change anything about it. But yeah, so it essentially takes you from beginner stuff through advanced stuff. But we will definitely get into that, and you'll be able to see for yourself.
Yeah, Strange Dominions, he can't understand why it's hard for him to understand Agrippa's Old English, yet he could understand pretty much every grimoire that he's read. And to be honest with you, I don't find the Old English in Agrippa as hard as I find like Discovery of Witchcraft. That one
Yeah.
is like, that one was, I remember
Or
opening that and be like, what are you talking about?
or Roger Bacon's De Nigromancia. I mean, even the script, it's like it's like Shakespearean type block, cursive Old English script. It's like, bro, what, like, what? So I can't believe people who could write back then were writing like that. That's ridiculous. But uh, hey, what's up, Issa? What is up? Yes.
Salt and Clear Water wants to know if we will be posting a reading guide if they want to read what we are discussing for the week.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly post one in my Discord. I don't know how I would do it on like a tick. Like I don't know of how to make like a text announcement to all my followers or anything on TikTok, but I can certainly do it in my Discord. And feel free to plug any of your groups or anything like that that you might be part of, Quinn, if you have any, where I'm sure you'll share it.
For sure.
But yeah, so feel free to join my Discord. The link is in my bio. If you click on the clickable link in the bio, because there's my website and my Stan account in my bio, click on my Stan account, which is the clickable link. That'll take you to my Stan, and at the top, it's all the social medias, and the Discord is in there. So uh, shouldn't have an issue. And yes, Issa, I am looking forward to tonight's as well. I'm not sure if you were here earlier. I don't think you were. Just as a reminder, and to anybody who just joined, tonight is going to be the last night that we are going to be doing this on Tuesdays. It's going to be moving to Sunday, same time, 9 p.m. to 11 Eastern. But the day is changing. So we're moving from Tuesday nights to Sunday nights, and that does start this coming Sunday. So this week, you kind of get two episodes from us. But then going forward, it'll only be on Sundays. And we're also moving from the pure Q&A type of a format, and we're moving over to a live stream reading, a discussion type of a format. And we're starting with the three books of occult philosophy. So just keep that in mind. And before we get started, um, I did want to do one final sort of topic, for Tuesday nights, to kind of send it off.
Yeah.
And that is a video that I'm sure many of you have probably seen over the last week or so. There was this guy on Joe Rogan, the or the Python Cowboy, right? And he was on there, talking about his, life and all that and his job. But one of the stories he told was how he was out in the woods hunting this python, and him and his group came across this satanic ritual site, right? And of course, there aren't any real images. His little picture of the stones with the upside down cross. Okay, great, but there's no, like, they didn't take any pictures or any video or anything like that. Of course not. Why would they? But he found this satanic ritual site where there were pentagrams and upside down crosses, and there was a trash bag or a sleeping bag that they thought of maybe a body could have been in, and there was blood on the wall with a dress from a little girl, and they wrote on the wall, we sacrificed her, she was 9 years old, all this other bull crap, basically the stereotypical stuff that if I were to ask you to write me a screenplay of a horror movie and it had Satanists in it, that's probably what you would write, right? Stereotypical stuff that have nothing to do with anything occult. Of course, this is what we get, right? But this is on Joe Rogan, so this is getting millions of views, right? Various channels are talking about it. I've seen at least 6 different channels outside of Joe Rogan and his Clips channel that are talking about this. Christian channels are talking about this. So it's blowing up. This story of finding a satanic ritual site is blowing up. So, Quinn, I wanted to get your thoughts on that video
Oh, well,
and
the
that
funny
guy's
thing
story.
is like the type of imagery, other like the type of imagery kind of reminded me of like some like actual like recorded videos I've seen of like Kimbanda and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But it wasn't but you don't see like upside down inverted crosses or things like that, you know?
Yeah,
Um and so there are traditions of course out there that are like real deal um spirit conjure traditions that do involve the like Luciferian current and so forth.
sure.
But even then, I've never seen the utilization of inverted crosses in any grimoire or any tradition that I've come across. Whenever I see an inverted cross, it's automatically is like some Hollywood stuff.
Yeah,
And It's just funny just to see that, and they're like, oh, it's satanic. It's like even with the like Luciferian traditions that you see popping up and that have been around, like you don't really see much of that. You'll see your like sulfur and your Luciferian sigils, and they have their own stuff going on, But you
Right.
don't really see like an inverted. You don't. It's not like the old LaVey days where you see the inverted pentagram and things like that. So when I saw it, I was like, yeah, just really just like you said, it looks like a scene. I don't know if the guy made it up for like the show or if some kids were out there that were messing around. They just happened to look up some Latin and thought they were doing something like kids who probably confused the Satanic Bible for something serious and were,
Yeah.
trying to carry out something in that aspect, but really didn't know like, hey, there's nothing to be had from this. And you just happen to have Joe Schmo, looking for pythons, and he comes across this. Of course, the normal layperson is going to be like, "Oh my God, it's satanic."
Right.
So it's hard to say if it was, serious or just make believe or some type of hoax or something like that, because none of the imagery really yells out anything that looks authentic, you know, and nothing about it. If we were to see a few like say you would have saw some sigils in there that were pretty familiar to like goetic spirits or something like that, then you'd be like, okay, there's someone, they know a little bit of what they're doing here, or something from the Grimoire Verum or something like that. But you don't see
Right.
that. You got inverted
No, you
crosses that in a doll, and it is not even like it was like a wax figurine that like had like nails driven in it, or something that you would see in like some type of hoodoo practice, but yeah, it looked somewhat made up, or just some kids were out there having fun, and some guy just happened to come across it and not know what he was looking at. The snake part was pretty interesting when he found the
Oh
snake in
yeah, the
there.
bleeding snake.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. But other than that, I'm not gonna say that that gives it any credit. Uh, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, so the doll itself is what makes me think that he made it up, or he is at least embellishing a somewhat real story, right? Maybe some kids were out there and they spray painted some stuff, haha, edgy 15-year-old goth kids out there, ha ha ha, thinking they're funny and rebelling against society and all this other nonsense. And they spray paint upside down crosses because they think it's satanic and evil, when, as Mimi is pointing out here, it's the inverted cross that belonged to St. Peter because he was crucified upside
Yes,
down.
yes,
So it has nothing to do with evil, but of course Hollywood wants you to think that it does. But so they may have done that, and then maybe he did stumble upon some, weird scene like that, just a bunch of graffiti. But I do not believe anything about the doll. Like the doll like followed you a few hundred yards that way and jumped on your leg. Like, stop playing with me, bro. Like, what, like Satanists are out here animating dolls now. Like, come on. But
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Um, and the blood of the little girl and her dress on the wall and the writing, kill, 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 and we sacrificed her to Moloch, and she was 9 years old, and all sort of nonsense. All that sounds made up. That just sounds made up. What he probably came across was some old abandoned, a couple of trailers or something out there, RVs or something that were spray painted up, and he's embellishing the rest because he's on Joe Rogan and he's trying to, get, drum up interest in him. And then when you Google him, his business pops up. So,
yeah,
you know,
totally,
so
totally.
that's 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 what I think it is, right? It's no different than, the people who go on Shark Tank and don't need any money. And, they're just
Yeah.
doing it to get business. It's free advertisement. So why wouldn't I do it? So that's what I think he's doing. But before we move on, that kind of brings me to another point about why are all of these mainstream, like podcasters and influencers and all this other stuff, why is everybody getting their occult and esoteric and mystical info from like non-occultists? And I don't even mean like they're getting it from new agers they're not getting it from any legitimately spiritual person. Cowboy Python said many times he's a Christian. He doesn't, deal with any of that stuff. And yet Joe Rogan is sitting here like just taking it in, as if it's all legitimate and real, and not giving any pushback, any real pushback or anything like that. It's like, and he's not the only one. There are plenty of channels out there that have plenty of people who come on and they just are talking nonsense about some esoteric concept or some mystical concept. What is with that? Why aren't people going to actual practitioners, when it comes to this stuff? Why are we taking the advice of not just new agers? I would still have a problem with that, but that would be better than people who have no idea about anything, just random guys that you have, some mountain climber, and now he's talking about, you know, Shinto, like he doesn't know anything. Okay, he had dinner one night when he was climbing a mountain with a Shinto tribe. Doesn't make him a master of Shinto. Like I don't understand why we take the advice of these and we listen and give them airtime with this stuff. Because I can't get
Yeah,
airtime about brain surgery. I'm not a brain surgeon. So
it's like one of those. It's I think like a good analogy for it is that everyone sees the Dark Song movie and think that that's Abermelin operation, but then you actually read
yeah,
the book and it's just a lot of praying, and I think that's just how the occult kind of is. You have a lot of people that just want the fireworks.
yeah,
They want the grandiose demon summonings and all that, but once you actually get to it, you're like, oh, I have to read all these books. Like, oh, I have to learn this and that. Like, oh, there's not really like this stuff actually happening that you see in Hollywood movies.
hmm,
So, it's just one of those things that it just sells, like
yeah,
drug, sex, and rock and roll, it sells, and that just falls in there. I always thought the same thing about a lot of the paranormal community. It seems like a lot of them tend to, I'm not saying all of them, I'm sure some of them have some real deal occultists in their groups, but most of the
oh yeah,
paranormal I see out there, they really don't like employ the expertise of actual like magicians or witches that actually know how to like communicate with spirits and so forth. It's usually some medium or psychic or something, but like you never see anything like, oh, we employ this magician to expel this spirit, but it's always a priest or something, always
yeah.
something Hollywood,
Or a psychic.
and
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So I've always been very perplexed by the same thing you're talking about, but also with the paranormal community. And I just think it is one of those things like once you get into the actual meat and gristle of the occult, it's no longer entertaining as they wanted it to be, you know?
yeah. That's true. That's true. I can definitely see that. Modern Magecraft says because they're more entertaining. That's a possibility, but since they don't have occultists on, how would they know whether or not they're entertaining? There are plenty of people who are in the occult that are entertaining, that could certainly be on the show. But I mean, the occult is nonsense. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I would urge you to use the mindset of a scientist and experiment rather than assuming. But that's fine. Also, they don't know actual practitioners exist. I don't believe that. I mean, this stuff is available at your local Barnes and Noble, right? I mean, it's available on Amazon. There have been movies and TV shows and documentaries that were made that do give a somewhat, or if it's a documentary, accurate representation of the occult. These people have agents and managers, and these people have to make deals with distributors, and they all have to review the movie. Everybody has to sign off on it. And those people have lunch with each other and talk to each other. Other people, surely they talk about the deals that they're making with each other. I mean, it's all one little insulated world. So I mean, I'm not going to say everyone is well aware of the occult, but I don't believe that there's no one in Hollywood that is aware um, of occult practices. It's a control tactic by the church. They claim occultists are either deceived or lying, so we can't trust their word. That's very interesting. I never considered that aspect of it for us. And welcome. Glad to have you. But yeah, that's a very good point. I never looked at it as a control mechanism by the church. And that would kind of make sense, since if they don't use psychics or mediums, their only other option is to use priests. Those are the only two options that yeah, they seem to have, if they have anybody that's spiritual on their show. It's psychics, mediums, or priests. Um, all right. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and get the reading started. So, for those who are just joining, we are doing a reading of the three books of occult philosophy from Agrippa. We are going to be reading through all three texts, obviously not just in one night. This is going to take us a while. And we are starting from the very beginning with book one, which is the natural world. We're going to be starting with book one, the natural world. And we're going to be getting into a lot of the foundational. Hold on, let me take off the dust cover. I don't want to. A lot of the foundational information within the text that lays out the basis of how we believe the magic to work and how the world around us works, what God is, what the soul is, what the elements are. It gets into all of that good stuff. Um, so, Quinn, how did you want to start this? Because chapter one is not long at all. It's really three paragraphs. So did you
Yeah,
want to just like trade off paragraphs, or did you want to take chapter one, or I take chapter one and
you
and then
know,
we discuss, or
I noticed that there's a good amount of like chapters here. Like the second one's a little bit longer,
yeah.
so we could kind of trade it off. But three or four are pretty short. So how about um how about we just kind of play it by ear? A chapter
Okay.
like you know what I mean. The second chapter we could probably most likely trade off in between them, and just when you get tired of reading, we'll just switch off, I suppose.
Okay. No worries. Hey, thank you very much, Sid. I like this shirt too. It's Guess, as you can see. I like this shirt too. All right, so you want me to start?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So this is going to be chapter one, and then I'll read it, and then we'll discuss exactly what we read. And as you guys know, with me, as I'm reading through it, I'll stop as I'm reading and point out certain things and all that, because that's just how I am. So let's go ahead and get started. So chapter one: How magicians collect virtues of the threefold world will be shown in these three books. It states there is a threefold world, that is, the elemental, celestial, and intellectual. Each inferior is ruled by its superior, accepting virtues flowing from the archetype and highest maker through angels, the heavens, stars, the elements, animals, plants, metals, and stones. Notice here he is describing pretty much Hermetic cosmology. But anyway, the maker transfers his omnipotent virtue into us, for whose service he placed and created all of these. This is why it's not a bad thing to do magic. Wise men do not find it irrational that we can rise by these same degrees through each world towards the same archetypal world, the maker of all and the first cause. This is the occult way of explaining the Hermetic ascension through the spheres. Uh, but anyway, from which everything exists and all proceeds. Not only can more noble things profit from these virtues, but they also attract new virtues from above. Hence, the virtues of the elemental world, magicians search through mixtures of various natural things, through medicine and natural philosophy. Then, with the influences from the rays of the celestial world, according to the rules of astronomers and mathematic disciplines, they connect with the virtues of the heavens. Next, they strengthen and confirm all manner of powerful intelligences through sacred religious ceremonies, ritual, magic. I will now attempt to relate the order and processes of these things in the present three books. The first of which contains natural magic. That's the book that we're reading here. The second, or book two, the heavens, which is called the celestial world, and the third of ceremonies, or the divine world. I do not know whether it was presumptuous that I, a man of small talent and letters, should have thought myself worthy to freely approach such a difficult, arduous, and intricate work in my youth. He wrote this when he was like 20, 23, 24.
Yeah, 23.
Um, yeah. Um, should have thought myself worthy to freely approach such a difficult, arduous, and intricate work in my youth. Whatever is said by me here and below, no one should assent to any of it, nor will I, except for those things that the Catholic Church and the Assembly of the Faithful have not condemned. What's interesting is later we will get into the reconciliation of magic and Christianity. Now, in his case, it's Catholic, but that would have been of the Gnosticism, that would have been the main form of Christianity in his area of the world, Germany, during his time, the Renaissance. So, what do we think, Quinn?
I think it's a great little start there. It's a good intro. It doesn't go too deep in anything. It's just pretty much, stating what he's pretty much going to be explaining throughout the
Yeah,
next books. I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, he is diving into some, hermetic cosmology, of course.
yeah,
Um,
it's awesome.
yeah, the Renaissance with Neoplatonism and um and Hermeticism. It was the thing at that time for sure. Um, and of course, being Catholic, which I believe Agrippa was a devout. I might be thinking of Levi. I think I might be.
No, he was.
He was
He was
okay.
a I don't think he was an abbot. That was Trithemius, or was he an abbot? Uh,
I don't know if
I
he
don't know.
was an abbot, but yeah, you're right. Trithemius, who was his teacher, was an
Yeah, but he was asked to run some. I'm gonna have to. This is really just a history of the book, not of him. So I'm
abbot.
gonna have to.
Yeah, I know he did lectures at a religious institution, and he
Okay.
got a lot of flack there. Um, in
I
Dole, France, in Dole
okay.
or Dole, France. Yeah,
Okay. All
yeah, he
right.
was a teacher of theology, and
Okay, maybe
he was
that's what I'm
accused
thinking
of
of. Okay.
heresy, and then he got sent to Cologne.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah,
But yes, he
but
was a very devout Catholic. That is to be sure. But yeah, I am fascinated by the overt hermeticism that is found within here, but also we see just a little bit of Grimtrad in here when he says that where is it here? The Maker transfers his omnipotent virtue into us, for whose service he placed and created all of these, right? So he named all of the worlds and all of the levels of those worlds, of which all the spirits would fit into. And transferring that omnipotence, of course, he's probably talking about the divine spark directly, right? But we can see it metaphorically referencing divine authority that we achieve in Grimtrad when we try to uh, appeal to the Abrahamic God to imbue us with the authority over demons and other lesser spirits.
Hmm.
So I find that
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yes, very much so. I will point out that since you are reading, you're reading from the Purdue translation, yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So I got the Esoteric Archives and it's very much in the old English style. If
Okay.
it follows it pretty well, but
Okay.
I do kind of have to keep my eyes wide and because he Purdue does a good job at making it very legible for us
Oh yeah.
modern Westerners.
Yes,
Uh,
he does.
yeah, so my reading is going to be a little bit
That
different.
is okay. And before we go any further, there's only two in here, so I want to let everyone know. So it should be noted that Agrippa is not referencing himself. This isn't just something that he pulled out of his own ass and is just saying these things, and then 500 years later we believe it. Agrippa is doing what any scholar, what any author, what any expert worth their salt in any industry would do. And he has his references and his sources. And the beautiful thing about the Eric Purdue version, but I'm also sure the Joe Peterson version has them as well, since he himself is a scholar. The references that is not available in most of the other translations, that, like the Donald Tyson translation and all that. Um, on the three books of occult philosophy. I mean, there's some, but it's not like this. You would have to get like that ugly big brown commentary on Agrippa's three books in order to really dig into any sort of history. The very first thing that he says in here is that there's a threefold world, that is, the elemental, the celestial, and the intellectual. Each inferior is ruled by its superior. You can find this in Pico de Mirandola's Heptalus, or excuse me, Heptaplus, right? This is about 100 or so years before Agrippa, and we can also see it in Reuglin's De Art in his book one, E2. I don't know what E2 is. I don't know how Reuchlin wrote his books, but book one, E2. And then when he says, wise men do not find it irrational that we can rise by the same degrees through each world towards the same archetypal world, so on and so forth, you can find this in Marsilio Ficino's uh, Dionysi, 1049. If you want to look deeper into where he's getting some of these foundational ideas, those are some of the texts that precede Agrippa in the 1500s that mention these things. So, and don't feel bad, Sid. It's no problem.
And that's why you see a lot of this Neoplatonism. You got Ficino and you got Pico in there, and they're
Yep.
known Renaissance
Oh yeah.
authority when it comes to Neoplatonism and Hermeticism and Christian Kabbalah and Christian mysticism and all that.
Indeed.
So yeah. Okay, so shall we move on?
Yeah. I'm good to move on to chapter two.
All right. So chapter two, what magic is, what are the parts thereof, and how the professors thereof must be qualified. Reading the more old English version is a bit more complex than it is reading Purdue's translation. So forgive me if I jumble some things up here.
No problem, man.
Magic is a faculty of wonderful virtue, full of most high mysteries, containing the most profound contemplation of most secret things, together with the nature, power, quality, substance, and virtues thereof, as also the knowledge of whole nature. And it doth instruct us concerning the differing and agreement of things amongst themselves. Whence it produceth its wonderful effects by uniting the virtues of things through the application of them one to the other, and to their inferior suitable subjects, joining and knitting them together thoroughly by the powers and virtues of the superior bodies. This is the most perfect and chief science, that sacred and sublimer kind of philosophy, and lastly, the most absolute perfection of all most excellent philosophy. Foreseeing that all regulative philosophy is divided into natural, mathematical, and theological.
All right.
Natural
Can we pause there for
philosophy,
just one
what's
second?
that? Yeah.
So, where it says wonderful effects are produced from magic, uniting virtues by applying things with each other and by accepting their congruity. This is talking about sympathetic magic, or how everything has a sympathy with each other, and with magic we tap into that. And it's also talking about how we can use those sympathies to produce certain results, or as he calls them, effects. So I find that very interesting how he describes it here. And we also see this in della Mirandola's Apologia. So we can go back to that for any sort of reference on how the sympathies of plants or stones or any other sort of whatever can interact with us and its surroundings in order to produce effects. So, and yes, women can practice magic. It's not just a male thing. Yes, women can do magic. Sorry, that was a question in here. Um,
Yeah, you for sure.
Please continue.
Okay, so next, let me start off from the end. Foreseeing that all regulative philosophy is divided into natural, mathematical, and theological. Natural
Mhm.
philosophy teacheth the nature of those things which are in the world, searching and inquiring into their causes, effects, times, places, fashions, events, their whole and parts. Also, now here it looks like we have a quote here. Do you also have the quote?
Yes, I do.
Okay. The number and the nature of those things called elements, what fire, earth, air forth brings, from whence the heavens their beginnings had, whence tide, whence rainbow in gay colors clad, what makes the clouds that gathered are and black, to send forth lightnings and a thundering crack. What doth the nightly flames and comets make? What makes the earth to swell and then to quake? What is the seed of metals and of gold? What virtues, wealth doth nature's coffer hold? All these things doth natural philosophy, the viewer of nature, contain, teaching us according to Virgil's Muse. So what that little poem we read there, I am assuming was from Virgil's Muse.
Um, I believe so. Let me see. Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes on with Virgil's Muse poem. Whence all things flow, whence mankind, beast, whence fire, whence rain and snow, whence earthquakes are, why the whole ocean beats over his banks and then again retreats, whence strength of herbs, whence courage, rage of brutes, all kinds of stone, of creeping things and fruits. But mathematical philosophy teacheth us to know the quantity of natural bodies, as extended into three dimensions, as also to conceive of the motion and course of celestial bodies. So right there, it seems like he just broke in right there to pretty much talk a little bit about how, okay, mathematical philosophy teacheth us to know the quantity of natural bodies. So talking about the stars and the what's the word I'm looking for? Uh,
The
what?
zodiac,
Yeah, not just the zodiac, but constellations.
6 stars. Oh, okay.
Yes, yes. As extended into three dimensions, as also to conceive of the no motion and course of celestial bodies.
Yes.
Extend into the three dimensions. You think he's talking about as we know it, as we know of the three dimensions, like width, height, and so forth?
I don't know.
Like,
We would my references for that state to go to Alcinusis De Doctrina, book 7, page 1949. So I don't that sounds like an intense book. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it might be talking like I don't know. My mind one of goes back to Hermeticism. And I feel like I want to say that it's talking about the eighth, ninth, and tenth uh, spheres, which are the last spheres before you reach God. Um, and so that's the spheres of the fixed stars and the zodiac and all that good stuff. So um, I kind of I don't know, like that's where my mind wants to go, but
yeah,
I can't always translate it through the Hermetic lens. So
totally. Yeah, he might also just be talking about the intellectual, the mathematical, and the celestial dimensions
yeah,
that you were talking about earlier. So, as he continues with the poem, as in great haste, what makes the golden stars to march so fast? What makes the moon sometimes to mask her face? The sun also, as if in some disgrace. And as Virgil sings, how the sun doth rule with the 12 zodiac signs, the orb that measured or round about with lines, it doth the heaven's starry way make known, and strange eclipses of the sun and moon. Arcturus also, and the stars of rain, the seven stars likewise, and Charles his wain. Why winter suns make towards the west so fast, what makes the night so long ere they be past? All which is understood by mathematical philosophy. Obviously, the like for instance, the orbit of the or orbit of the Earth around the sun. When it comes to the days are longer in summer and shorter in winter, is all understood by mathematics. So it seems like he's using Virgil's poem, Virgil's muse, to tie together the mathematical, the celestial, and the and what's the other one he was talking about up here? The and theological. He's tying together theological, natural, and mathematical.
yes, correct.
So then, hence by the heavens we may foreknow the seasons all, times for to reap and sow. And when 'tis fit to launch into the deep, and when to war, and when in peace to sleep, and when to dig up trees, and them again to set, that so they may bring forth. Amen. Like I said, the language in this is sometimes it makes me stall if you're reading. I'm like, wait, what? So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's just his way of tying those three different virtues together: mathematics, theology, and philosophy.
Indeed.
Do you want to go on
Sure.
with the last paragraph of this?
Yeah, well, for me, it's a couple of paragraphs, but yeah, I am happy to close out chapter 2.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
so it states, but theology teaches about God himself. What is mind? That's hermetic. But anyway, what are the intelligences? What are angels? What are daemons? Notice it says daemons and not demons. And the reference here is a pretty big one, so I'm going to read it. The reference says Agrippa is following the Renaissance understanding of the term daemon. The modern usage of demon typically implies an evil spirit. The Greek root daemon is more complex. Sometimes it could mean a deity or sometimes a spirit. By the Renaissance, the Latin daemon often referred to a lower level spirit that was more terrestrial. Some daemons were good, some were evil. Later in Book 3, Agrippa quotes Iamblichus at length, showing that daemons could be attending spirits for people, places, and various activities in life. Some support life and happiness, others do not. So that's a little reference from Eric there, Eric Purdue. But to continue with the actual three books, what is the soul? What is religion? What are sacred institutions, rites, sanctuaries, observations, and sacred mysteries? In addition, it instructs us about faith, miracles, and the virtues of words and figures, about secret operations and mysterious and mysteries of seals. And as Pluvius said, teach us to duly know and understand ceremonial law, sacred divine will, and even binding religious law. But now I have to collect myself. These three powerful faculties of magic embrace, unite, and actuate. Therefore, the ancients valued magic as the highest and most sacred science. It is found illuminated clearly in the writings of these important writers, especially Zalmoxis and Zoroaster, who shine forth to such an extent that many believe that they were the inventors of this science. These writers followed in their footsteps. Abaris, the Hyperborean, Charmondus, Demigeron, Eudoxus, Hermippus. Other authors clearly stand out, such as Hermes Trismegistus, Porphyry, Iamblichus, Plotinus, Proclus, Dardanus, Orpheus the Thracian, Gog the Greek. That's just a cool name, Gog the Greek. Germa the Babylonian, and Apollonius of Tyana. Ostaphanes, whose books Democritus of Abdera plucked out of the grave and embellished with commentaries, is also an exceptional writer of this art. So, as I was saying earlier, this is not stuff that Agrippa just made up out of his rear end. He is well versed. I mean, as we were talking about earlier, he was a professor at certain monasteries and universities and things like that. So he's well read, well studied. He didn't just pull this stuff out of his butt. He sources people who came centuries and centuries and centuries before him. But anyway, in addition, Pythagoras, Empedocles, Democritus, and Plato traveled to learn this noble philosophy, and they returned proclaiming that its teachings held the highest sanctity and secrets. In fact, Pythagoras and Plato approached Memphite prophets to acquire knowledge and traveled through almost all of Syria, Egypt, Judea, and the Chaldean schools so that they would be instructed in the sacred magical records and divine things. And you can read Reuchlin for that in his De Verbo if you want to find a source earlier than Agrippa that also states the same thing. Therefore, whoever means to study these faculties, if they are not educated in natural philosophy, that's why the first book is called The Natural World, in which the qualities of things that are declared, in which one can reveal hidden qualities of anything that exists, and if they are not a worker in mathematics and the aspects and figures of the stars, from which anything with a sublime virtue and quality depends, and if they are not skilled in theology, where immaterial substances are shown, which are dispensed and administered, they cannot understand the rationale of magic. This is why when the trolls come in here and try to say things, it doesn't make any sense because they don't know any of this stuff. They don't know any of that stuff that I just mentioned. They would have no idea. So indeed, there is no perfect work in magic or any work that is truly magical that does not embrace these three faculties. So that is the end of chapter 2. And what was I going to say? I just lost it. I'm sorry. You can go ahead. I lost what I was going to say.
Um,
Plutus.
So, yeah, natural, mathematical, and theological. Um, Obviously, even when we get to grimoires, we don't have crazy math like you might see in some other traditions or systems.
Yeah.
But most of the time, like for instance, if you're talking about like the degrees of the zodiac, and if you're working like stellar magic,
Hmm.
you're actually working with time like hardcore time elections, then there's going to be a little bit more math involved for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um, but we'll see like later on in the second book with his scales of four, his scales of 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, it's the numbers is obviously, we all know math is a language, and it is something very much that magic abides by.
Oh,
And
definitely.
it's kind of the link between, for sure, uh as part of the link between the natural and the theological. The um theological and mathematical, to a certain extent, seem kind of opposite.
Hmm. Oh, I
But
didn't know.
when you think of mathematics being a language of the universe, and then you look at the universe through a theological point of view, it makes sense. Especially if you're getting
Agreed.
into something like Pythagoras, um, or I forget, Pythagoras, and the other, another P name. Uh,
Plotinus?
no, not no. I forget.
Porphyry?
Not no. Yeah, there's so many P. Paracelsus. Paracelsus.
Paracelsus. Wow. Why? Wow. I don't know why I didn't get that.
um. So
Uh,
yeah. That's the funny thing about this writing is like, uh, Agrippa is verbose. So
yeah,
luckily,
very much
Purdue,
so.
yeah, on your side, luckily, Purdue does a great job of kind of like narrowing it down to what he was really trying to get at. Because on my side, there's a lot more words to it and a lot more fluff. Uh, and it like all that whole those whole two chapters probably could have been broken down to one, but it's okay,
Yeah.
Agrippa. I get
I mean,
it.
he was 24. What did you want?
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah.
before we move on to chapter three, I do just want to let everyone know. So, for reading this sort of text, as foundational as it is, as important as this text is, we have to remember that in the Renaissance, and especially for someone like Agrippa, um, he was a Christian, right? So nothing could be done without the approval and the permission of God. Um, so when he says that you would need to have like a theological basis in order to do magic, he's of course strictly speaking from his Catholic upbringing and roots, right? If you're working from a more folk style or a more animist style of magic, like shamanism or something like that, you may not necessarily have to do anything like that. So we have to remember that Agrippa is from the early 1500s, and he was a Christian, so he's
Yeah.
coming from that perspective. So I don't want anybody to think, if you don't know anything about magic and you're hearing this for the first time, that you have to be a Christian or some kind of Abrahamist to practice anything like this. Um, you don't, at least not for magic in general. For Grimtrad or anything, you would have to adopt that belief system at least while you're doing it. Um, but not
Yeah.
for general magic.
It really didn't age well for sure. Nowadays, I'd put something more as closer to spirituality rather than theology. Because it doesn't, as we found with magic, you just need some type of belief in some type of greater good or something greater than ourselves. It really doesn't
Mhm.
matter the name.
Right.
Um, that's why you have people like Jake Stratton Kent that had like goetic liturgy, and
I forgot about
you
that.
had, yeah, you even had like Crowley. who would adopt, Coptic and Greco gods and so forth. So instead of being, Jehovah or Yohevave, it was something different, like Apollo or Hermes or
Yeah.
Nuit and all that. But all in all, it was the same. It was having a sense of spirituality, a sense of the beyond. So theology, as we know of it today, and spiritual, we see that there's actually a difference between the two, and it really didn't age well with the text. Now that we see that we're not living in a Christian, I mean, we're living in a Christian state, but we're much more aware of what's going on.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And I don't know, Sid. I mean, while I don't care for Plotinus, I kind of like the name Dardanus, Gog the Greek. Just sounds like you just, beat people up for a living. That just sounds
Yeah.
awesome. And Germa the Babylonian, like that's just awesome. But
Yes.
Plotinus or Proclus, Porphyry. I mean, Porphyry has a cool name, but I
Well,
don't know. Some of these are a
I
little
know
weird.
I don't know what stage Proclus, Plotinus, and uh, Porphyry. I think they were all teachers of each other. One taught the other, I believe. And
Yes.
I don't
If
know if it's part of
Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
I don't know if it's part of the same lineage as Trithemius and Agrippa. I don't know if Proclus taught Trithemius or something like. I don't know if they're part of the same lineage, but I know those three, Porphyry and Proclus and Plotinus, and Iamblichus, of course. I know that they were all like teaching each other. Or this was a teacher of this one, and so forth. I forget the actual order of it, but they they did have their own thing. I know that Porphyry, he was. I think he was the one that was pretty anti-Christian. I think it was Porphyry or Plotinus. I forget which one of them was anti-Christian, and he was more on the pagan side. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah, I don't recall.
yeah,
And
I
I
forget which.
lost what I was going to say because my toe started to act weird. Um, Damn, what were we just? It was something about these names.
Yeah, Plotinus
Oh,
and Porphyry.
oh no. So you were talking about the lineage of philosophers. So I don't know. I don't think that this is the same lineage that Trithemius and them come from. But the first one that you were mentioning, how all of these guys taught each other, according to
Yeah,
Hermes Trismegistus, yes, that is the lineage. Now, of course, Hermes Trismegistus says it started with him, and then he gave it to Moses, and then Moses gave it to Abraham, and then Abraham, and then all the way down to these guys. That's how but yes, that would be correct.
yes,
Thinking
yes,
about
yes.
changing my username on Discord to Plutius now. Well, so this is Plotinus, 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 for Platonism, for um, it's escaping me. It doesn't matter. But yeah,
Yeah, I think Porphyry was the one. He was pretty. He was more into the pagan stuff than he actually wrote some anti-Christian things. But okay, let's go move on to chapter 3
yeah,
of the four elements, their qualities and mutual mixtions.
we are
Uh,
learning about the elements now.
yes, yes. Okay, there are four elements and original grounds of all corporeal things: fire, earth, water, air, of which all elementated inferior bodies are compounded, not by way of heaping them up together, but by transmutation and union.
Hmm.
We'll stop right there, which is pretty cool because when you think of chemistry and so forth, and the way the universe and the cosmos works with all the elements, and you add this molecule and this and that, and then it becomes, and they react differently. It's pretty much what he's talking about here. And
100%.
when they And when they are destroyed, they are resolved into elements. For there is none of the sensible elements that is pure, but they are more or less mixed and apt to be changed one into the other, even as earth becoming dirty and being dissolved becomes water, and the same being made thick and hard becometh earth again. But being evaporated through heat passeth into air, and that being kindled passeth into fire. And this being extinguished returns back again into air, but being cooled again after its burning becometh earth or stone or sulfur. And this is uh, manifested by lightning. Plato also was of that opinion that earth was wholly changeable, and that the rest of the elements are changed as into this, so into one another successively. But it is the opinion of the subtler sort of philosophers that earth is not changed, but relented and mixed with other elements, which do dissolve it, and that it returns back into itself again. You right there, you see a lot of you see some tenets for like alchemy. That is a if you know about like the Golden Dawn, the colors for the earth is all of the elements of Yesod, Netzach, Hud, and Tiferet all melded into one to make the colors of Malkut. So that's one of those things that Golden Dawn was also following with that. Earth is all the elements put together, and you can see that throughout, all of the cosmos. Now, every one of the elements hath two specifical qualities, the former whereof it retains as proper to itself, and the other as a mean. It agrees with that which comes next after it. Bit of a jumble there. for, for fire is hot and dry, the earth dry and cold, the water cold and moist, the air moist and hot. Which it's funny reading that because though that's one of the first things you will learn in your neophyte knowledge lecture in a Golden Dawn temple
Mhm.
is the aspects of the elements. And so after this manner, the elements, according to two contrary qualities, are contrary one to the other, as fire to water and earth to air. Moreover, the elements are upon another account opposite one to the other, for some are heavy as earth and water, and others are light as air and fire. Wherefore the Stoics called the former passives, but the latter actives. And yet once again Plato distinguished them after another manner, and assigns to every one of them three qualities: to fire brightness, thinness, and motion, but to the earth darkness, thickness, quietness, which is a big reason why we see Saturn it's very often corresponding with the element of earth: darkness, thickness, quietness. So Saturn
Mhm.
is like slow, dark. You got death in there, you got silence in there, you got form in there, the thickness, you got form, solidity. Um,
No, it's not.
and and according to these qualities, the elements of fire and earth are contrary. But the other elements borrow their qualities from these, so that the air receives two qualities of the fire, thinness and motion, and one of the earth, darkness. In like manner, water receives two qualities of the earth, darkness and thickness, and one of fire, motion. But fire is twice more thin than air, thrice more movable, and four times more bright. And the air is twice more and and the air is twice more bright, thrice more thin, and four times more movable than water. Wherefore water is twice more bright than earth, thrice more thin, and four times more movable. As therefore the fire is to the air, So air is to the water, and water to the earth. And again, as the earth is to the water, so is the water to the air, and the air to the fire. And this is the root and foundation of all bodies, natures, virtues, and wonderful works. And he which shall know these qualities of the elements and their mixtions shall easily bring to pass such things that are wonderful and astonishing, and shall be perfect in magic. And I will say I am very grateful that the Golden Dawn does their best in putting that whole paragraph into charts because trying to learn that stuff from that paragraph, I could see myself getting started with like magic and just being like, I don't know about this. This is
Yeah,
just all over the place. But you know what? When you put this stuff into charts and you're able to draw it out, it makes a lot of sense. I remember writing a
that's
paper
true.
on stuff like this and seeing that like, oh, air is hot and wet and it borrows the wetness from water and it borrows the hot from fire, and then you put them at their quarters, pertaining to the Golden Dawn system, water in the west, fire in the or fire in the south, air in the east, and then earth in the north. And when you start to contemplate these things, it really starts to make sense, and you see the switching off and the changing of these. But yeah, reading it as is like, oh man, it really needs to go down on the chart for sure.
Yeah. If anybody is interested in a chart and you're a member of my Discord or you're not, please join the Discord. The same friend and former uh, co admin of a intermediate occult forum I used to run like back in 2015. The She made that angel powered psalms chart that I uploaded to the Discord that a lot of you liked. She also did a chart for the hot, cold, wet, moist, dry type of a thing. So if you guys are interested in that, I can certainly upload that. Um, to the Discord, and that should be able to help with things like this. Or if you're just beginning your journey, that'll definitely help you have a better understanding of the elements and their operations and their mixtures.
Yes.
Um,
And I want to point out real quick that when you
yes.
learn those qualities of like the passive and active qualities, and also like the hot and the cold and so forth, when you start to get into correspondences with planets and zodiacs, it makes it a lot more understandable why Mercury is this, why Mars is this, why Sun is this. It really just kind of speeds up the whole process of understanding the correspondences.
Yeah, 100%. Um, Fire God says the word moist. That word though, yeah, a lot of people don't like that word moist. I don't have a I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. Moist. I don't. What's wrong with moist? I don't know, but but a lot of people do have an issue with that word. But before we move on to chapter four, I want to your edition or your version, the Joe Peterson version, in the second to the last paragraph, where you were saying, "But fire is twice as thin as air, three times as movable, and four times as bright." Um, Mine has the thin and the movable, but it doesn't have bright. Instead of bright, mine says sharp. So air is twice as sharp, water is twice as sharp. Like it doesn't say bright. So I wonder how Eric Purdue got sharp from bright.
Huh. I mean,
I don't know.
if we're I mean, if you're thinking about like bright as in like color being sharp or something, I guess it could translate
Maybe.
close to that. I don't see it
Yeah.
too far off, but that is interesting.
Yeah, it states to, I mean, so he references Giorgio's Harmonia, he references Fichinio's Timaeum and Plato's Timaeus. So we may have to look into those to find out maybe why he chose sharp instead of bright. That's a very interesting word choice. And I noticed that that happened also with me and Alchemic when we were reading through the corpus. I have my version of the corpus here, but he had a different edition by a different author and things like that, and a different translator. So the word choices were different, and in some cases, a lot different in
Yeah.
a lot of the book. Um, so it's very interesting sometimes, how certain people translate certain things. Um, but anyway, let me see if I have anything else before we move on here. No, this was a pretty short chapter, um, and it's kind of self-explanatory. And you did a good job with the explaining the quality, so I don't really have anything to add there. Um, Unless you have anything else, we can go ahead and move into chapter 4. Well, wait a second. I hear you have a spirit box. What do you mean? I don't have a spirit box. I have a servitor. So I have a fetish, like a spirit house, but I don't have a spirit box. Um, well, Issa says, well, sharp can mean cutting through to a point, but it can mean piercing too, light that can be bright. Okay, all right. I I think that's what Quinn was kind of getting at. Um, and yeah, I can certainly see that. All right. Unless you have anything else to add, Quinn, we should be able to move on to chapter 4 here.
No, let's go ahead.
All right. So we are moving along swimmingly here, guys. We are on chapter 4 of the three books of occult philosophy, book 1. All right. Chapter 4 of the rationale of the threefold consideration of the elements. There are 4 elements, as we have said, without perfect notice of which we can effectively produce nothing perfect in magic. Each of the elements is threefold. As such, 4 of each becomes 12, through 7 into the number 10, and they proceed to supreme unity. And this is 12 plus 7 equals 19, 1 plus 9 equals 10, 1 plus 0 equals 1. That's how he's getting that. Um, so anyway, all virtues and wonderful operations depend on the elements, and progressions happen from them. Therefore, the first order of elements are pure and not compounded, not modified, and not allowed to mix. Yet they are incorruptible, and all the virtues, and the virtues of all natural things produce effects not by them, but through them. No one can explain their virtues, because through them all is possible in all things. Indeed, one who ignores them cannot complete any wonderful operations. The second order of elements is compounded, many layered, varied, and impure, yet reducible by art to a pure simplicity. When they are returned to their simplicity, their virtue above all completes all occult and natural operations. And this is the whole foundation of natural magic. The third order of elements is foremost, and by themselves not elements, but rather compounded from each other, varied and multi-layered and changing between themselves. They are the infallible middle, and therefore they are called the middle nature, or the soul of the middle nature. Indeed, there are few who understand this profound mystery. In these, by certain numbers, degrees, and orders, is the consummation of all effects, in whatever things are natural, celestial, or supercelestial. They are full of wonders and mysteries, and can operate in magic as well as with the natural and the divine. Excuse me. Indeed, through the threefold nature, all things are bound, dissolved, and changed. There is knowledge and prediction of the future, the destruction of evil daemons, and the connection with good spirits after their descent. Therefore, without the triplicities of the elements and the understanding of them, no one can confidently work in the occult sciences of magic and nature. But whoever can learn to reduce impurity into purity, multiplicity into simplicity, and also discernibly know nature, virtue, strength in number and degree, and order without dividing substance, will easily possess the knowledge of all natural things and perfect operation of celestial secrets. And that he got from his own teacher, Trithemius. We can read more about that in Trithemius's Westenberg. All right. I think this was a pretty interesting chapter to explain how there's a threefold level to each of the elements. You know, there's one that is not compounded, not split, not, you know, it's pure in all of its things. Then there's something in the middle where it is compounded, but also multi-layered and varied. And then there is the final one that is not compounded or not pure and not multivariate, but is compounded by all of them put together. Um, so I will say that in the vast majority of occult practices, that's not really acknowledged. This is more of a foundational sort of a thing, sort of a further explanation on the elements and how they work together and in harmony. Um,
Mhm.
so,
Yeah, this is very much like a big reason why in Lodge Magic, like the Golden Dawn, they would focus a lot on spiritual alchemy because they would see that we are comprised spiritually of the elements, just like the world is comprised of the elements. And for us to be able to master the elements of the outside, we had to master the elements from within. And this right here is pretty much a philosophy kind of, directing you towards that mystical teaching of, as within, so without, and all that. Um, it for sure can be a paragraph that if you're reading it, you might want to go over a few times, just
oh
like
yeah,
all the other ones. But it'll come to make more sense as we go on. Um, like, uh, yeah, I mean, short chapter. A lot of
oh
these
yeah,
are pretty short, but yeah, you got the pure elements, you got compounded elements, and then you have the middle, the soul elements. So, I wonder if that could be as in like the spiritual elements, the elements that as we see on as being the soul, and then the elements that are compounded like the second order would be like what we see within our reality, within the cosmos and within Earth, everything is compounded
I like that.
together. And the first order is just them as themselves without any type of tampering. Energy as energy, energy would be fire,
Yeah, yeah. I can certainly agree with that. It seems to be describing, you know, the three layers of the elements, how it's made up, um, more than anything else. So yes, I can certainly see that. And yes, it amalgamated. Yes, I like that.
this is all philosophical in the first place, so there's no wrong answers.
Yeah,
Okay, so chapter 5 of the wonderful natures of fire and earth. Now here's a big one right here.
yeah. I was just about to say. Now we're going to get into some good stuff. And this is a chapter that actually quotes from the corpus. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right. Where's that at? Do you know where it says that at? Where it
yeah.
quotes that?
It's the very first two sentences. The very first two sentences quote
Oh, okay.
is from the Corpus Hermeticum.
Do you want to start it off then, since since it has a special place in your heart?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Let me see.
okay.
I'll read the first four paragraphs, and then you can read the final three paragraphs.
Okay.
All right. So mine says, chapter 5 of the wonderful natures of fire and earth. For all wonderful operations, said Hermes, two are sufficient: fire and earth. Earth is passive, and fire is active. Fire, as Dionysus said, is in everything, and through everything it comes and goes brightly. It is in anything that is bright, and likewise secret and unknown when it is alone, with no other matter approaching it in which it may be known by its own action. It is immense and invisible, and by its own action is by its own power. Fire is movable, handing itself over in a certain manner to all that approaches it, renewing, protecting nature, enveloping with brilliant light, incomprehensible, clear, discreet, recoiling, bringing up, moving sharply, not. I think this for some reason the editing here is not good. I think it's supposed to be elevated and then not accepting, servile indignities, always moving and moving others, comprehending the incomprehensible, not needing another, secretly rising from itself, accepting materials, revealing themselves to its magnitude, active, powerful, and also invisibly present in all things. Fire does not allow neglect, but is resolved, as if with a vengeance. It suddenly reduces and and in reasoning generally and individually, impalpable, not lessening, taking all riches into itself. Fire is the immense and shameless portion of things, as Pliny said, and there is some doubt which it is greater. There is some doubt whether it is greater in destroying or producing. Fire is singular in itself, and it penetrates through all things, as the Pythagoreans said. It widens the sky, illuminating, but in the underworld it narrows, dark and tormenting. In the middle, shares from each. Therefore, fire is singular in itself. It is received in many ways and in many things. It is distributed differently, as Cleanthes testified to Cicero. Therefore, the fire we use comes from other things. It is in stones, in which it is shaken out by a blow from iron. It is in earth, which smokes from digging. It is in water, which heats springs and wells. It is in the deep sea, which grows warm from being tossed by the winds. It is in the air, which we often see growing hot. Each animal and all living things and vegetables are nourished by heat, and everything that lives survives because of enclosed heat. And you can take it from there, brother.
Awesome. I love really quick, preserved by heat, everything that lives lives by the reason of enclosed heat. And then when we think
Hmm.
of the element of fire, we could very much equate it um, with like energy, pure energy itself, right?
Yep.
Um, and it had me thinking about the heat and the energy that just inanimate things will give off, like the food that you lay out as offerings for your ancestors and so forth. That energy that the food gives off, as I've heard from other magicians say, and I've also contemplated myself, that is what the spirits feed off of. When you set out your food for them and the wine and the alcohol and tobacco, the essences, the heat, the energy that
Yep.
these give, that is what they feed from. So it's not just
100%.
something like you just putting it out there for it's not in vain. There is
Right.
actually something that is being fed off of.
Yep. And we kind of already went over this in what was it, chapter two, or was it chapter one, where it talked about the how magic works and how things work by the sympathy of things and congruence. So the internal energies that these things give off is what the spirits are after. It's not the food or the alcohol or the tobacco or whatever itself. They would have no use for that. It's the energy or the essence that it gives off. So well said.
Yes. So the properties of the fire that is above are heat, making all things fruitful, and light, giving life to all things. The properties of the infernal fire are a parching heat, consuming all things, and darkness, making all things barren. The celestial and bright fire drives away spirits of darkness. Also, this our fire made with wood drives away the same, driving away a campfire, driving away wolves or something, or creatures of the night. Also, this our fire made with wood drives away the same, inasmuch as it hath an analogy with, and is the vehiculum of that superior light, as also of him who saith, I am the light of the world, which is true fire, the father of lights, from whom every good thing that is given comes, sending forth the light of his fire, and communicating it first to the sun and the rest of the celestial bodies, and by these, as by mediating instruments, conveying that light into our fire. As therefore the spirits of darkness are stronger in the dark, so good spirits, which are angels of light, are augmented not only by that light which is divine of the sun and celestial, but also by the light of our common fire. Which I always thought it was very weird how in like the Ars Goetia we're supposed to be summoning like chthonic and infernal spirits, yet some of their like best times to call them, the Limigeddon says, is like at in the morning or at noontime,
Yeah,
and I was like, I don't know, I kind of my instinct tells me I should be doing this at night, but
right.
um, just a little bit of thought right there. Hence it was that the first and most wise institutors of religions and ceremonies ordained that prayers, singings, and all manner of divine worships whatsoever should not be performed without lighted candles or torches. Hence also was that significant saying of Pythagoras, do not speak of God without a light. And they commanded that for the driving away of wicked spirits, lights and fires should be kindled by the corpses of the dead, and that they should not be removed until the expiations were after a holy manner performed, and they buried. And the great Jehovah himself in the old law commanded that all his sacrifices should be offered with fire, and that fire should always be burning upon the altar, which custom the priests of the altar did always observe and keep amongst the Romans.
Hmm.
Now let me scroll down. Now, the basis and foundation of all the elements is the earth, for that is the object, subject, and receptacle of all celestial rays and influences. In it are contained the seeds and seminal virtues of all things, and therefore it is said to be animal, vegetable, and mineral. It being made fruitful by the other elements and the heavens, brings forth all things of itself. It receives the abundance of all things, and is, as it were, the first fountain, from whence all things spring. It is the center, foundation, and mother of all things. Take as much of it as you please, separated, washed, uh, depurated, subtilized. If you let it lie in the open air, if you let it lie in the open air a little while, it will, being full and abounding with heavenly virtues of itself, bring forth plants, worms, and other living things, also stones, and bright sparks of metals. In it are great secrets. If at any time it shall be purified by the help of fire, and reduced unto its simplicity by the convenient washing, it is the first matter of our creation and the truest medicine that can restore and preserve us. So yeah, that the whole paragraph was just pretty much talking. The light gives the the sun gives light to the earth, which grows plants, and then we feed off the plants, and animals feed off the plants, and it's pretty much talking about the Lion King circle of life. Is what is getting into, and how the elements really feed off of each other there. Um,
Oh yeah.
I thought it was really interesting talking about uh, re- uh, not going through with ceremonies, prayers, and so forth without having any candles lit, because
Hmm.
of the whole driving away of wicked spirits. Um, I've there's been times where where I thought it would be a little bit more trying to look for something crazy to happen during a ritual, turning off all the lights and having no
Oh, wow.
flame. Yeah, I've had that thought of doing it, but I never have because you can't really read your prayers in
Yeah,
the
I
drum
don't think
bar
I've
when you have
ever
them
done a
light.
ritual without candles.
Yeah, but I've actually had that thought come up, like a little ideas, like, hey, maybe do a conjuration and turn off all the lights and just sit there and see what happens.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, no,
experiment, man.
yeah, right. But yeah, it is a very interesting chapter right there with the torches and the flames and all that. Yeah, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, before I get into that, Issa said, "Oh man, we've all been praying wrong." Then, yeah, I mean, I've been saying that, since I started, this channel that, people are praying incorrectly. So yeah, I certainly do agree with that. I don't believe Agrippa really gets into like prayer. I don't think he actually gets into like prayer. But G'day Karma in his ecstatic witchcraft has a really excellent chapter on ecstatic prayer, which I think is fantastic. So I urge everyone to check that out. But um, going back to the three books here, so a few things. Number one, I find it interesting that in your version, it does not say that Jesus said, "I am the light of the world." In yours, it said him that said, "I am the light of the world." In mine, it's clear that that's coming from Jesus. Um, and also, the part about where it was saying how the Almighty Himself required all sacrifices to be offered with fire, and that the fire always be burning on the altar. Of course, we can go ahead and in the Bible we can look at Leviticus 6:23 for that, and also John 8:12 talks
Mm,
about those things. So for those who want to, where does the Bible say that? That's where it says it. And then also, for the section about how it was also sort of kept alive in Roman times. In my version, it says also at one time the Roman Vestal priestesses continuously watched over and guarded their fire. Sort of a continuation of the Jewish sacrificial rites. We can see this in Rog Dingius, his Lectionum, chapter 8, verse 35 for those who want to look deeper into the history of that. There's a lot more. There's even another hermetic quote here from the corpus, but it's less important, quote unquote, than the three that I pointed out here, in my opinion. So we don't have to go over all of the references. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
I,
those were the three that I found interesting.
yeah, it is interesting, and I find it very interesting that till this day, it's magicians and witches alike still find it hard to snuff a candle flame other than letting it go naturally out. And there's the whole superstition about blowing it out. You snuff it instead, or you use your fingers. Till this day, within our community, there's these superstitions of or laws of how to treat fire and flame, and obviously it's goes all the way back. For I'm sure further than this.
Oh yeah, indeed, indeed. Yes, Dr. Mama, this will be available on YouTube. And not a problem, Sid. Have a good evening. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. But yes, attend those children. We do not want the children getting out of hand. Did you just read about how to go about prayers and rituals with fire from Agrippa's book? No, no, no. We are talking about fire, yes, but not about how to do it. It was essentially saying how in most religious ceremonies, you are not supposed to do them without fire. And then it gave a couple of references from the Bible and other, sources, Cicero and Pythagoras and Ficino and, all that. So that's what we were talking about. Um, all right, well, we got about 20 minutes left, and chapter 6 is pretty long. So I doubt we would get through it, and I don't want to stop like halfway through. So should we just stop the reading here and do the remaining 20 minutes sort of like Q&A or?
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, just keep note of where we're at because I'll almost, I mean,
Yeah. Yep.
of water, air. We're at water and air, so that won't be hard to
Got
remember.
the bookmark in there, so that shouldn't be an issue. But yeah,
Awesome.
so Sunday, guys, we will be picking back up with the reading. We'll be on chapter 6, The Wonderful Natures of Water, Air, and Wind. This is about 10 pages, and so to read this out loud, and the way I read, where I stop, at certain points and give a commentary, it'll take, probably about 20 minutes to get through 10 pages. So we'll just pick that back up on Sunday, which is going to be our new time for those who weren't here earlier. We are no longer doing our readings or our live streams on Tuesday nights. Tonight's the last night for Tuesday. Starting this Sunday, we will be doing it on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 11. So keep that in mind for those who want to continue with us with not just this text, but texts going into the future. Because we hope if this goes well, that we will be expanding into other grimoires and elucidating and commentating and analyzing those. So, um, yeah. So, do you guys have any questions about the occult, esotericism, mysticism, anything that we just read? You guys have any questions of? Let me scroll because I've been ignoring the chat. Um, let's see here. Once you see the coincidences in your brain, or excuse me, once you see the coincidences, your brain will literally be like, "What?" Do you mean like with the occult and certain religions? Is that the yellow brick you had there? I mean, well, it's yellow, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call it a brick. Each book is pretty. I mean, it's a nice sized book, but it's pretty thin. But yeah, under the dust cover, it is yellow. But I wouldn't call it a brick. Now together, it's a brick. All three books together, sure, but by themselves, I don't know. I wouldn't consider this a brick. So
So those all three of the books fit into that sleeve.
yeah,
Oh man, that's a beautiful little set. No wonder it's like $106.
yeah. They all fit in this nice little case here.
Oh,
All three
that's
here.
awesome.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah. It's
man.
it's like I don't even have it on any of my shelves. I keep it just sitting right here on the little bench with a few other books there. But yeah, it's fantastic. I
I gotta get that just so I can put it next to my Rankins Grimoire Encyclopedia.
Yeah, dude, I'm still jealous that you got the hardbacks on those. Man, I was just impatient. I was impatient. So, but it's the information that counts. That's what I keep telling myself. It's the information that counts. It's the information
Yeah,
that counts.
yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
Trying to make myself feel better. But yes,
Yeah,
Harry, three books.
yeah, I
Sorry,
have a
man.
cheap one. It's like one of the cheaper ones I could find off of Amazon with a really crappy like big print on back. It's
The three
complete
books.
and it's complete and uncensored. Translated out of Latin into by J Freak. J
Okay.
Freak, yeah.
It
Uh,
it is it Frick? Fricke?
it's Freak.
Oh, okay, okay. Never mind. I thought it may have been one of the same guys who did an elucidation on the corpus, but it's not him. So never mind. But yeah, I was trying to find at least like a downloadable version to send you of like the Eric Purdue version or something like that. Because I'm
Yeah,
I'm surprised that Joe Peterson didn't modernize his online version. I'm very surprised because he's done that with a few texts. So I don't
yeah.
know why he didn't do it with the three books, as foundational as that text is. But
Th- I mean, I know some grimoires that he has up here, he just kind of kept in French or in Latin.
Yeah,
But if you do look onto his site, he one of the first things he says is for a new translation by Eric Purdue. He sends you he has a link going straight to Amazon for his book. So
yeah.
um, for it, he even has the Latin text right here. Uh, yeah, but he doesn't have any footnotes, but I think when did he updated this 2023 and for new translation by Eric Badu 2021. So I mean, there's a good chance that he just knew that there was someone working on it, and he just let them take
True.
care of. This is I know that Purdue was working on this for a while. So
Oh yeah, and I think he did use the esoteric archives. Hold on, I think he says it. Or maybe I'm thinking about somebody else. Maybe I'm thinking about David Rankine, but somebody thanked Joe Peterson um, for access to their archives and things like that. Let me see. Publisher's preface. Maybe it's in here. No, this is all about Agrippa. Yeah. Let me see. Maybe I'm thinking about David Rankine. Oh, wait. Acknowledgements. Okay, let's see. Chris Warnock, Daniel Skulke. Really? Is this Three Hands Press? What? No, this is not. This isn't Three Hands.
from from who? With the Eric Purdue?
Yeah. No, this is
I think
Inner
it's an
Traditions. Yeah. Why
inner
is he
tradition. Yeah.
thanking? I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, inner traditions. I was reading it right here.
Okay, yeah. Why? He's thanking Daniel Skulke. Oh, for their editorial work. Okay, okay. Okay, no, he doesn't thank Joe Peterson. Uh, the only names on here that I recommend are Austin Coppock, Caitlin Coppock, Daniel Skolke, and Christopher Warnock. I don't know any of these other names. I'm guessing Jeff Purdue was maybe his brother or his partner. Um, yeah, he doesn't thank. So maybe I'm thinking about somebody else.
I have a question that's directed at me over here.
Okay.
Jeff James asks, Quinn, knowing you went through the Golden Dawn, how long was it before you tackled these books? Um, and I think it's probably the same thing for you when you left the Covenant and was started getting into more alternative sides of magic. You don't really tackle the books. You kind of have them there, and as you explore traditions and systems, and you start to become more acquainted with things, you kind of chip away at them. You might pick up a book. You might honestly. This is a big part of how like these traditions are spirit led because all of a sudden you just decide to pick up this book and you find something in that book that just totally changes your perspective and gives you like and really just kind of refers you to a way of like how to do this or that. You've been thinking about a
Right.
Libra spirituum this whole time, don't know how to go about it, and all of a sudden you see someone talking about the fourth book of occult philosophy. You get interested in it, you look into it, and it tells you how to do a Libra spiritum. And that's how a lot of these how this usually works in the occult, especially in magic, and the synchronicities and just and it uh that is a big way that we tend to be led for sure by our guides. But yeah, you don't really tackle them. It's not like I sat down and read the whole three books of occult philosophy. A lot of this I haven't read, but there are a lot of parts for sure I refer to when it comes to building rituals and planetary correspondences and secret alphabets and things like that. So there's a lot of things I use for sure. but it wasn't exactly tackled as with a lot of occult books. They sit on the shelf, and before you know it, you've had it for a whole year, haven't read one bit, and then all of a sudden you're picking it up, and you find all different types of information that help you for that particular moment that you happen to be in. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you feel about that?
No, yeah, I agree. So when I was coming up in the coven, we didn't talk about this. I didn't know about the three books of Occult or anything like that at all. It was purely witchcraft. But after I left and discovered Grimtrad, there was always references to the three books of occult philosophy in a lot of these commentaries. And so I would go online and download the Donald Tyson version, which has some references and some, but it's not anything good at all. And so that made the text unreadable. I mean, unless you were like a serious scholar or like you're a nerd for this stuff, you wouldn't want to sit down and read, the Donald Tyson version or even the version that you have. Because it's not written in a modern tongue. It's not, and it's dry. It's boring. It I don't know. So it doesn't lend itself, again, unless you're like a scholar or you're super into this stuff, it doesn't lend for itself to be read, not just in one sitting, but like in like a consecutive order. Like every night I'll read, a couple chapters or anything like that. Even that was like hard to do.
Oh
So
yeah.
I never read it like that. It took me a few years to finally get through it all because I would always come back to it every couple of weeks. I'd be working through another grimoire or something, or I'd be reading a commentary and it'll make a reference to it, and then I'll go to my ebook copy back then and just read that little chapter or those three chapters. Oh, okay, cool. And then a few weeks later, the same thing. I'll be reading another book and then I'll go back to it and and I'll read another three chapters from, book two or something like that until eventually I got through the whole book. Um, but with the Eric Purdue version, this one is very readable. This one's very approachable. It's not, I mean, other than the sheer size, if you can get past the size of the thing and you actually open it and get into it, you'll see that a lot of the chapters are short, very easily read. It's in modern language and there's a bunch of references. So I think nowadays, the younger generation coming up in the occult, if they take the time to do their research and things like that, they have an amazing amount of knowledge at their fingertips that I could have only dreamed of. I wish this existed, 10 years ago. But unfortunately, it did not. So, but I got by
Yeah.
with the Tyson version and that the commentary that I have. I forget who that's by, but yeah,
Yeah, no, just listening to you read Purdue and then like trying to follow along on my side, it's just I'm just like, man, I really wish I had the Purdue version because it's just reading that old tongue is just like, oh my God, it's like you said, it's dry and
yeah,
it's dense and hard to get through. And as like people could probably tell if they're listening, like talking about in the fire, this and that and this, and then to the air, and then the air to the fire. It's back and forth. It's like holy shit! Like
yeah,
that to
yeah.
me,
It's very hard
you
to
would,
keep up with.
yeah, if you were to see that in a modern book, they would most likely just make a chart for you to be
Yeah,
like, all right, this is how this looks.
yeah. You're welcome, Dr. Mama. Not a problem at all. Yeah, we will be switching over to Sunday nights. So starting, and it'll be this Sunday. So you'll get two times that we'll be streaming this week. But then after this week, going forward, it'll only be on Sunday nights, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. So yeah, you're welcome. What was the name of the book set? The last one? It's the three books of occult philosophy. So tonight we were just reading from book one, which is the natural world, but it's part of a whole set of three separate books, one, two, three, and they're called together. They are the three books of occult philosophy. Now, originally it's by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, but this edition is by Eric Purdue, which is phenomenal. If you have, because it's not cheap at all. It was like $150. If you have the money, I certainly recommend getting it.
Delectably deviant, they said. I'm afraid of mistranslated words with modern translations of older books. But that's the cool thing about the Purdue version. I don't have it, but I know very well that that was kind of like one of his main like he was very adamant about making sure that the translation
Hmm.
of the Latin came out right.
Yeah.
He would all. I remember him in an interview. I think it was a Glitch Bottle where he was talking about his editing and translation of the three books, and how he was saying that there was some stuff that Tyson would translate and was just totally like did miss the mark, especially when it came to things concerning like I think it was like astrology and like stones and like certain names for herbs and things like that.
Exactly. If you happen to get the book, or if if you go on Amazon and it has the Look Inside Me feature, um, the acknowledgments piece and the introduction, the publisher's preface, all of that should give you uh, or should put your mind at ease for the translations that were used here. Um, I do find it interesting that even though the book was published through Inner Traditions, he used Three Hands Press to edit it. And I think that that says a lot, because if you go, and I'm not trying to say anything about um, Inner Traditions that's bad. If they offered me a book deal, I'd take it. But they have, like, I'm on their website right now. Right now, I'm looking at aliens and UFOs. Like, they're promoting aliens and UFO book nonsense. This and it's like a carousel. There's one called Angels in Waiting. Like, this is all very new age, all very paranormal. They seem to publish anything and everything when it comes to spirituality. And the fact that even though he went with them for a publishing, he didn't get it edited through them. He went with a authentic Occult publisher, Three Hands Press, Daniel Skolke, and all them. And Andrew Chumbley, back when he was alive, was associated with Three Hands Press and all that. Um, uh, he went with them to edit it. And so that should tell you about the importance that he placed on making sure that the translations and things were accurate and coming from occult scholars and not just a scholar. So
Mm-hmm.
what's the series called? The Three Books of Occult Philosophy. Oh, you're still here. Yes, we are about to end this though in a few minutes. It's almost 11. So we'll be ending it shortly here. So if you have any questions, guys, any final questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I went to college. Reading material like this is a cakewalk for me. Well, I'm glad that you don't find this daunting, because a lot of people do, especially if they see, the size of these books. They're like, oh my God, I'm never gonna, get through all this. But yeah, this is it's been over 500 years, and this is still a mainstay. So
Yeah, and I don't think college really has anything to do with it because there's a lot of scholars who went to college and were or will still say like, yeah, this book was dense or this book
yeah,
was not a cakewalk. So good for them.
there isn't a sigil for a demon named Kevin, right? No, no, there was no demons named Kevin. I got one when I was working more regularly and was told not to read it, so of course I got it. Yeah, uh, the three books, you mean? We love the woo, bro. And we love you being here. Even though you are trying to troll, your trolling keeps me in the algorithm and keeps me on the For You page. So we love you being here. That's the sole reason why you've not been muted, because you think that your trolling is getting a rise, but it's actually helping me remain relevant and popular. I was told it was useless and not to read it. Well, of course they would tell you that. They would tell you that the foundational text is useless. But I'm glad that you didn't listen, Sid, and that you are the Emerald Tablets a fun time? There is no Emerald Tablets. I also find challenging material more interesting as well. So do I. So do I. I was telling Quinn earlier, because we were when he brought up this concept of switching it. Um, we were talking about books, and I had stated that I don't like the books that are mainstream that everyone's reading. I prefer like the underground stuff from like Scarlet Imprint or Nephilim Press that only 800 other people in the world are reading, right? Not 17,000 that can get it on Amazon, right? There's only a few hundred people, maybe at max 1,000 people in the world that can have access to this. And that's the stuff that I like because even though a lot of times it's similar info to what's being put out in the mainstream, that's what everybody's reading. And I don't like, I feel like if you want those recommendations, every occultist is recommending them. So there's no need for me to do it. But nobody is recommending, books like Eshu and the Kingdom of Night and Fire or, I don't know, The Altar of Cain or, Seven Spheres and stuff like that. So, uh, I prefer the underground stuff because it's usually more dense. It's usually a lot more heavy, and that's where the real work is. No shade to Llewellyn or Inner Traditions or I don't know any of these other Wiser and any of these other mainstream publishers when it comes to the occult. But I prefer you know Three Hands Press and Ouroboros and Anathema and Primal Craft and those types of things. Golden Horde. Um,
Yeah, Golden Horde. Ibis. I know that they did a few of the ceremonial
yes.
works for
Yep. I have their
or
Arbitel. I think it's
yeah.
Ibis. Yes,
Uh-huh.
Ibis. I have their Arbitel. Yeah. Um, I love all people have bounty. Toth the Atlantean? Yeah, that's not a real thing. That was made up. Dr. Maurice Doreal made that up. He completely fabricated that entire thing. And you don't have to believe me. You can believe his wife, who, when they were going through a divorce, she found out that he was not so faithful. So she decided to expose him and she released his. She didn't just say this stuff like, oh, he was lying, and then we just have to trust her. She released his passport, which, back then it wasn't so easy to fake that stuff. Um, she released his passport because in his Emerald Tablets of Thoth nonsense. He claimed that he got this information by traveling to Egypt to the pyramids, and he sat in the pyramids and he channeled this information. Well, his wife released his passport, which turns out he never went to Egypt. He was never anywhere near Egypt. So his response was, "Oh, that's right, guys. I totally forgot. What I meant to say was I astral projected to Egypt, and that's how I got there." And that's how I channeled the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. So you still have to believe me. And some of, well, I won't say you people, but some people did believe it. But the rest of us with brains were like, okay, bro, like you're lying. So you've been caught, you've been exposed. Shouldn't have cheated on your wife. Sorry about that. Um, so yeah, no, there is no Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Sorry to any Billy Carson fans. Sorry to all. No, the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, all BS. That entire book is predicated. It's presupposed upon the position that Dr. Duriel and his Emerald Tablets of Thoth is valid, and it is not. So, all right.
Uh,
Um, yes, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
no, one last question on my side from Jeff James. He's
Yes.
wondering if I think Rigardi's Golden Dawn, or do I still refer to Rigardi's Golden Dawn and the beginner books?
Good
Um,
question.
yeah, I don't really refer much to Rigardi's like Rigardi works from a totally different model of magic than the traditional grimoire magician. Because Rigardi's a little bit more into like a Eastern energetic and psychological model. Um, so I don't really revisit Rigardi stuff. Maybe in the future if I get back into Golden Dawn stuff after like ceremonial of my grimoire stuff, I might revisit it, but yeah, Rigardi just doesn't speak to the cosmology from which I work from at the time. But yeah, they're cool books. He's a little hard to read sometimes because he's very like psychoanalytic, very verbose as well. Terminology he uses is kind of like over my head. I'm kind of I'm kind of a dim dude, so it's kind of hard to get sometimes. But I mean, I still have the books. They're on my bookshelf. I read three of them because when you're in Golden Dawn, they're kind of like cornerstones. But yeah, not really my favorite though. Uh, Three Obsidian Eyes, nice seeing you, but we're about to get out of here. Thanks for dropping by though. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but guys, come back Sunday. Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are switching from Tuesdays to Sundays. So join us this Sunday. Where are we? Today is the 22nd. So the 27th. Looking at my calendar here, the 27th. Join us. 27th of August, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be back here to continue the reading, chapter 6. We are on. But yes, this will be. Um, the closing out of this live stream. So thank you all for being here this evening. Sid, are you flirting with Maddie in the chat? You flirt with Matt? I ain't never been with a baddie. His name is Matthew, but I'm calling him Maddie. Just kidding. Just kidding. But yeah, thank you all for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, Quinn, for your time this evening. Great idea. I think this is going to end up being fantastic. For those of you who came in late, I will be putting this up on the YouTube tomorrow. It's going to take a couple hours for TikTok to process it before I can download it, and I won't be awake at that time. So tomorrow, sometime in the evening when I come home from work, I'll be able to upload this to YouTube. So be on the lookout for the Mystical Rebel YouTube channel. If you came in late or you want to watch this again, save it, whatever, it'll be available tomorrow on YouTube. But for the rest of you, I will see you guys tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when I do my live stream with Alchemic Mason. We will be reading Hermetica. We will be going through the Hermetica 2. So for those who will be there, I'll see you then. Again, thank you, Quinn. Thank you all for being here, and I'll catch you guys on Sunday. As always, seek the mysteries. Peace.
Peace.